Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. I am Pittsburgh Current editor and publisher Charlie Dietz, coming to you this morning, as always, from Sorgatron Media in the heart of the Beachview Business District. I'm really excited about today's show because we have the Wizard World Comic-Con coming here this weekend, and we have one of the participants, actor Thomas Ian Nicholas, will be there. Thomas, good morning. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I feel like I'm on Wayne's World. This is awesome.
Really? We were going for the Wayne's World vibe. You should see our other place is even more Wayne's World-y, so it's a little weird.
I'm all for it, dude. I'm down like a clown.
So people know you, obviously, from movies like American. Probably, I would think a lot of people either saw you for the first time in Rookie of the Year or American Pie, because that was like two sort of phases in your career.
Yes, most of my scenes got cut from Radio Flyer. So.
Oh yeah, you were in Radio Flyer, correct? Yeah. So how did you get started in the business? Where did you grow up? How did you?
I grew up in Los Angeles. I would say my first, I started acting when I was 6. My first big gig was playing a young Tony Danza on Who's the Boss on the 100th episode. I recently, Tony was at another Wizard World, the one we did in Philly, I believe. And I hadn't seen him in 20 years.
Wow.
I played his daughter's boyfriend on the Tony Danza show in 1996, I think it was. That was the last time I saw him.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I forgot about this. So did you want to be an actor at that age? Is that something that you wanted to do? Was it your parents sort of talking to you about that?
It was definitely my idea. The opportunity arose because of my mom.
Yeah.
She was casting Atmosphere at the time. We had moved down to LA in 1985.
Right.
I was born in Vegas. My mom grew up in San Jose. We lived in San Jose for a little bit in Santa Cruz, and then we moved down for my mom to pursue her acting career. She ended up, getting a job in casting, just as to stay in the business and generate opportunities. A lot of times she would put herself as the featured extra performer.
Right.
So in the film that I made my debut in, she plays like 6 featured roles. She's the reporter, she's the nurse, she's like all over the thing, with different hairdos.
Right.
And so she got like a call on a Sunday night saying, "Hey, we need an altar boy for this low budget Jan Michael Vincent movie." And it was 10 p.m. Call time was 6 a.m. Monday morning.
Wow.
So she woke me up before school started, said, "You're coming to work with me." I got her out of a jam, but I loved being on set. And so I basically bugged her about doing it again. And that bugging turned into, going out and finding an agent. And, my mom always asked me like every 2 weeks, "Hey, are you sure you still want to do this?" Or, back then, this is, 1986. This is an 87. It's before like having, cell phones and even pagers.
Yeah.
So if I had an audition, my mom would, roll up to the school like right when it ended. If I didn't, then, I would play at school and then, do the buddy system and walk back to my place.
Sure.
And if I didn't want to go, my mom would say, "Cool, no problem, play with your friends." So it was always my decision. And
did you probably make it more often than not? You made it to go to auditions, or was it a little 50-50 at that time? I remember specifically this one thought pops into my head. Remember one time that I stayed to play with my friends, and then I ended up like getting into a fight with one of my friends, or like getting hurt or getting my feelings hurt, and then I pretty much just went on the auditions from that point forward, because I was like, forget that. Yeah.
I can get my feelings hurt at school. I don't need to stay after school for that.
Well, there's a scene in Rookie of the Year that is exactly that, right? There was the whole thing with your buddies. You're building the boat, and then you. So let's talk about Rookie of the Year, because I was not a teen when I saw it. I'll admit I was a young adult, and I've watched it probably 30 times in my life. I wasn't
a teen when I shot it. I was a tween. No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, you're totally good. But I remember I'm a huge baseball guy, and so you had me in two things with that movie. Number one, I'm a huge baseball guy. Number two,
I was born in 1971, and sometime in the early 80s, I saw the Buddy Holly story. So I was a huge Gary Busey fan. So there was a time that whenever Gary Busey did anything, and I saw a lot of crap at that time, I would go watch that Gary Busey movie. So Gary was in that movie with you. So what was that process like? Were you is that one of those auditions that you happened to go on that you got?
It's kind of a crazy story because I auditioned for it and didn't get a call back. And then randomly, I was switching agents, and my new agent called up and said, "Hey, I got an audition for you for Rookie of the Year." And I said, "Well, I've already been on that."
Right.
She goes, "Well, obviously they don't remember you, so go again."
Yeah.
So I went again, and at this time, they had auditioned kids in L.A., they auditioned them in New York and Chicago, and it was getting to the point where Daniel Stern, his son, Henry, who's now a senator in California, was only 10, but he was like, "Listen, if we don't find what I'm looking for, then I'm just going to have my son play this role."
Right. Wow.
Because at least I know what he can do.
Yeah.
And I know he has the right tonality for this. And then in I walked and got the call back, and then I met with Danny, and I'm pretty sure Danny felt that he wanted to hire me right at that first meeting, because at the end of the read through, he just looked at me and he's like, "Where did you come from?" And I don't even know why I said this, but I was like, "My mother's womb." And I mainly said I will answer why I said that. I mainly said that because I was 12 and it was kind of complicated to be like, "Well, I was born in Vegas and then I lived in Santa Cruz and now I've been in LA for 6 years." So I didn't know what city I should say I'm from. So I just came up with the mother's womb line. I don't know why.
Well, you're at that age at that point where that's probably the one time in your life you can get away with that joke without getting side eye and thrown out and security called and everything. So that's got to be. I mean, Daniel Stern decided to go with you over his son. That's got to say that.
Well, I mean, I don't think he really wanted to hire his son. I think it was just in the sense that he wasn't finding, what he wanted, because you really needed someone that, and sort of my MO, at least in the comedy world, is being just kind of natural and approachable, which is sort of how I try to be at Wizard World. It's just kind of who I am. And I think that, he wasn't finding that with the auditions, I assume. I don't know. They also offered it to, Jake Gyllenhaal, I found out recently.
Wow.
Because he had worked with him on City Slickers.
Oh, yeah. I forgot Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, but his parents wanted him to stick with drama. So, which is what I'm doing now. I'm kind of switching gears. Drama's more my forte. Mm-hmm. And at the time, comedy was my weak point. So I think in that moment, when I answered that question to him, I was trying to be funny because I had seen, City Slickers and all that. So,
have you? Did you at the time? I know you were young at the time, but did you know that movie was gonna? I mean, because a lot of people, I have friends. I worked for a while south of Chicago, so I have a lot of friends in Chicago that I swear to God they think you're a Cub. They think Henry Rowengarter is a Cub, And so, did you have any idea that movie was going to blow up like it did? And it's still strong today.
I mean, I didn't necessarily know, and it was just like American Pie, the first one. They were both sleeper hits.
Yeah.
It wasn't. This is not the day and age of Marvel movies opening with $1 billion opening weekend.
Right.
Both of them did respectively well, but they just sort of stayed and continued to perform in the box office. And Rookie of the Year, when it made $50 million in the box office in '93, I certainly wouldn't have said it's going to be a cult classic. I just knew it had done well, and I knew that at the time, I was being recognized for my work in it, and I think as it continued to go forward, I thought to myself prior to doing American Pie, gee, I hope this isn't the only thing that I ever do, because if that's the case, I'm going to be a pretty disgruntled 30-something-year-old in rehab, denying that was me. I don't know.
It's better than being a disgruntled 30-something not in rehab. I mean, if you've got the drug problem, obviously you don't want to go if Well, whatever. We're talking to Thomas Ian Nicholas. He's here this weekend. He's here this weekend living the Pittsburgh life. He had Permanis for breakfast. He's going to be at Wizard World this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. We're going to talk more with Thomas when we come back after these words from Compassionate Certification Centers.
You can get medical marijuana now. Visit cccregistered.com or call 888-316-9085 today. Compassionate Certification Centers is a physician-owned and alternative health network here to serve you. Call 888-316-9085 today. Get certified fast. Compassionate Certification Centers, experts in medical marijuana, treatment plans, education, research, and patient advocacy. Finally, a team of doctors here to serve you. Call 888-316-9085 or visit cccregistered.com. You can get medical marijuana now. Visit CCC.
Rookie of the Year, American Pie, and a lot of other great stuff that we're going to talk about, as well as his music and as well as his appearance this weekend at Wizard World Comic-Con at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we actually have some tickets to give away for Wizard World. And you can go to any of our social platforms, which is at PGH Current. That's a story I'll tell you later. And you can also email Olivia at pittsburghcurrent.com, and we will enter you in the drawing for those tickets. So, Thomas, as I said earlier, I saw Rookie of the Year, well, number one, because I'm a baseball fan, but also I was a huge Gary Busey fan. People, especially people today, know a completely different Gary Busey than you knew, and a completely different Gary Busey than I grew up watching when I was younger as well. What was it like working with Gary at that time?
Gary was really nice to me.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah, he once carried me by my underwear across the lunchroom in front of 100 crew members, about 25 feet or so. But he was really nice to me.
Just for the heck of it, or was there a bet on the table? Or
no bet on the table. It just was Gary.
Gary. So that was post accident, I believe, but very early, I think, after his motorcycle accident.
That post. I think both of them.
Yeah. What was that whole? What was the whole filming scene like? I mean, it was. Was it? I mean, I know it was a family movie. There were several kids on the set, obviously. But what was that? What was that experience like? What was the scene like?
It was great. We shot in Chicago for 3 months. We had 55 shooting days. I worked 54 of them.
Wow.
We shot on Wrigley Field for an entire month.
Wow.
In October. Funny story for baseball fans. At the time, the producer Bob Harper met with the Cubs administration and owners, which was not the Ricketts back then, and said, they okayed them filming at Wrigley Field.
Right.
And they said, when can we shoot? This was May of 92. They said, okay, well, you can shoot in October. And they said, well, what about the postseason? And they said, we can guarantee you that you can have Wrigley Field in October. There will be no post. And they knew this in May.
Yeah.
So they were very excited about that. Also, in regard to Wizard World this weekend, I wanted to also mention, for those of you that don't win tickets, you can still get 20% off your general admission if you use my my discount code, which is my initials and Wizard World's initials. So Thomas Ian Nicholas Wizard World, so TINWW. You get 20% off, and not only am I doing the meet and greet stuff, but I'm playing on the entertainment stage on Friday and Saturday. And I don't know the times, but the schedule's on the website. I never know. I'm at my booth, and they go, "Tom, you need it on stage." I go, "Great, I'm on my way."
So, well, let's talk before we talk about American Pie. Let's talk a little bit about your music. Have you always been musically inclined? Is that something you were always interested in, or always performing, or when did that sort of develop in you?
I started playing guitar when I was about 14, and I started touring about 11 years ago or so. In fact, here in Pittsburgh, I shot a movie. I want to say it was in 2007. I think Bridge to Nowhere, Blair Underwood directed. Locals Mike Dolan and Ben Barton produced it, and I ended up coming back every year for like 5 years, playing shows in Shadyside, and I love Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That is when Pittsburgh became one of my favorite cities, was back when we shot that movie.
That's awesome. So what kind of how would you describe your music to new fans?
It's funny. We got like a '90s vibe because I grew up in that. You know that. I had my mom's collection when I was a kid, and then the '90s grunge era was my stilo in junior high. So I kind of have a combo platter of those, but more '90s rock on the sound. And I remember 10 years ago, I'd finish a show and someone would be like, "You really sound '90s," and now everyone's like, "Wow, you really sound '90s." So. It all comes around, and I just do what I do.
God, love nostalgia. It's great for, it's great for those of us that like to live in the past a little bit, like myself. So, do you enjoy acting or performing music more, or do you have a preference? Is it?
They're two very different things.
Sure.
For me, I love them both for vastly different reasons. Obviously, as an actor, I'm playing more characters that are outside of myself, and as a musician, I'm just, free and being myself. Obviously, as a musician, I'm writing the songs and doing a lot of originals. So there's that, but I'm also in the film world. I'm also now producing,
right?
And I've produced about 6 features, and I've got one that's in post right now called Adverse, which is with Mickey Rourke, Penelope Ann Miller, Lou Diamond Phillips, Sean Astin. So I'm not writing those, but I am getting to, to choose those in a different way than just auditioning as an actor.
Right, and I wanted to talk about that. So I saw the cast for Adverse, and I was like, again, talking a little bit about just. I'm a huge fan of great character actors, and those are my favorite. Like I grew up, I always loved guys like Powers Booth and the guys that were in everything. But they made their statement, in that film. And you've got a lot of great actors in that film. What's the film about, and how do those different players fall in?
Yeah, and in fact, Sam Levine will be here at Wizard World, and he has a role in the film also. The film, I play a rideshare driver that has to navigate through a dangerous crime syndicate to save my sister.
Wow.
So Mickey Rourke is the head of the crime syndicate. Matt Ryan, who was Constantine, is his right-hand man. You got Andrew Keegan and Luke Edwards. Luke, who was in another baseball film around Rookie of the Year, sort of play some of the henchmen, so to speak. And, I definitely tried to lose myself in this role in a big way and become exactly that. Character lead is like that is my ultimate goal as an actor, to disappear into the role. And it's one of those funny things where I've been at my booth and someone will point at, Walt before Mickey, where I played Walt Disney, and they'll be like, "Oh, what'd you do in this movie?" And my picture's right there as Walt Disney, and I'm like, "That's me." And they're like, "No." Wow. So, my greatest claim to fame as far as disappearing in a role was Rules of Attraction. I remember I went to the premiere. My mom was sitting next to me. I was on screen for a couple of minutes, and my mom randomly leans over and she goes, "So when are you going to be in the movie?" I go, "Mom, that's me." So
when you fool your own mother, you're on your way. So I was actually, as I mentioned, I was talking off camera a little bit. I interviewed earlier this week, and you can find the interview at PittsburghCurrent.com, and also you can go to WizardWorld.com for all your ticket information and the schedule and everything like that. But I was talking to Brian Krause of Charmed, who will be at Wizard World this weekend, and what he told me was his goal was to never be famous. If that happened, it happened. But what he wanted to do was be a working actor his entire life. Work as an actor, retire as an actor. Is that sort of where you view your goals and career? I mean, because obviously that's what you're doing right now.
I mean, I love creating and staying in the creative space. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I started playing music, was all the downtime in between films, or even when I'm on a film sitting in my trailer kind of twiddling my thumbs. You can only run your lines so many times, and that's, I just love to stay in that creative space.
Yeah.
It's why I like producing and acting. Less time sitting in my trailer twiddling my thumbs, because when I finish the scene, then I go from work to work.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I would say that fame is a byproduct of success, but yeah, it's not the ultimate goal. Though once you do achieve it, it can open a lot of doors. Right. So I definitely am very thankful for the success that I've had over the years.
How did you navigate that space in between? It sounds like your mom was a big influence and a big help on that. But how did you navigate that space in between Rookie of the Year success and then were you 17 or 18 when you got American Pie?
I was 18.
18 when you got American Pie. How do you navigate that transition from teen tween, star in a really big movie? How do you navigate that area between that and then American Pie? I know there's some work in there, but how do you just that transition of being a child actor into a young adult actor? How did that work out?
I mean, statistically, there's only about 3 to 5% of us that kind of made it through into a young adult or into an adult career. It's like the eye of the needle, so to speak.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I just stayed at it. I mean, I was taking private acting lessons at a really good school for kids, and then by the time I became a young adult, I got thrown out because my acting coach is like, "You've been here for 10 years. I can't teach you anything more." But I mean, I went every semester for 10 years.
Wow.
Just auditions at the time. From 86 until 98, there was probably 100 or more auditions every year.
Wow.
So I've heard no a lot in order to land the 50 jobs that I've had in my career. So I think it's just I've learned to enjoy the journey and the challenge, and like I said, I love to stay in the creative space. So if I'm creating a character for a potential opportunity or doing something, I don't know, there's just something about that. It's kind of like what do writers say? They say, how do you write? Well, you write every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, if someone has a goal, you just got to do something toward that goal every day.
Absolutely. We're talking with Thomas Ian Nicholas of American Pie, of Rookie of the Year. He will be at Wizard World Pittsburgh this weekend at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. WizardWorld.com for your ticket needs. You can also email Olivia at PittsburghCurrent.com to enter our contest. We have some tickets to give away, and also you can get 20% off your tickets if you go to the site and you use the promo code TINWW.
That's right, TINWW. My initials and Wizard World's initials, 20% off your GA tickets.
Perfect. So let's kind of go down the stretch here and talk a little bit about American Pie, because
What's
you ever hear of that movie?
I've heard rumblings of that.
It was, I believe, the film at that. There seems to be a film every 5, 6, 7 years that sort of bring back the hard R genre, and that was the hard R return of that time.
Yes, Adam Hers, the writer, had a theory that films had a 20-year cycle. And so he studied Animal House and Porky's incessantly and sort of combined them all. I mean, point in case, if you're familiar with Porky's, the Internet Nadia sequence is the hole in the girls' locker room sequence.
It is.
With
absolutely.
technology.
Wow. Sorg and I are both nerds, and we both like, hey, that's right.
I don't think you really said right there because of the correlation. I think you just started imagining naked girls.
Well, maybe. Well, no, actually, when I don't imagine that, that's when things are a little different in my day. So you're 18 years old, and you go on that movie, and it's there's a lot of there are sex scenes. There are How do you, as an 18-year-old, what did you think about that? Was that nerve-wracking? Because you had a pretty intense scene with Tara Reid. Pretty intense. Let's call it pretty intense scene with Tara Reid. How does something like that, as you're 18 years old, what is that like when somebody says, okay, hey, you're going to blank and do this scene?
I'll tell you how this went down, and we're going to start at the beginning.
Please.
Vicini said, go back to the beginning. So here I am, back at the beginning. Sorry, Carrie Elway was at the last Wizard World. So, if
our fans don't get that one, don't spoil it for them. If they don't get that one, they shouldn't be here.
Yeah,
fans. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I gave them enough of a hint, and it wasn't Robin Hood Men in Tights. So I got the script the first time, and it was titled "Untitled Teenage Sex Comedy." That you can make for under $10 million that audiences or that studios will hate but audiences will love. Something like that.
Yeah.
I might be getting it wrong, but all those details were in the actual title of the film.
That's amazing.
And the opening scene was Kevin and Vicky with Kevin, let's just say, using his hands,
Right.
and Vicky giving him instructions. So it wasn't, just Jim by himself.
Right.
It was
Right.
sort of, it takes two to tango. Anyway, I read that opening scene about 2 pages in. I shut the script. I threw it in the trash. I called my agent and said, "Why are you sending me porn?"
Wow.
And so I would say like a couple weeks later, same thing. They had auditioned around, couldn't find what they wanted. In fact, I found out recently the full details of them offering the role to Andrew Keegan, my friend who I went to high school with. But he couldn't do it because of his schedule with 10 Things I Hate About You.
Wow.
So they were dying to like find their last person. They had the whole film cast, and my agent called me. Now I don't know how true this is, but she said, "Look, they really want to see you. Can you just read the whole script and give it one more shot?" And so I agreed. Of course, I didn't read it. I mean, I did read it eventually, but I'm saying like I called my agent. I was supposed to, this is before email. Sure. She couldn't just email it to me.
Right.
So I was like, listen, I've already threw the other script away. It's been a couple weeks. Trash has come and gone.
Right.
So I said, leave one in the Dropbox for me. I'll come pick it up, and then I'll read it. So 5 o'clock comes. It's audition's supposed to be the next day. I call my agent. I said, listen, I haven't picked up the script yet. I didn't make the drive to Century City. Just schedule the appointment.
Right.
I'll go. I promised you that I would read it. So anyway, I drove down, picked it up, woke up at like 5 in the morning. My audition was at 11.
Yeah.
And I read through it, and I was laughing hysterically. Yeah. And I realized there was also a lot of heart in there. And so, that was my sort of take on it, is that being that I come from more of a dramatic background, and sort of my approach to even, Rookie of the Year and being grounded, I was more focused on the idea of, Kevin going through the struggle that most people go through. Most people know a guy like Jim, or they know a guy like Stiffer, but they aren't that person. Most people are Kevin.
Are Kevin, right.
So my entire approach was just to, depict what we are all going through and let people know, like, hey, this is pretty normal. We're all kind of sharing this. It was in Adam Herz's mind. And, and maybe he modeled Kevin off of Chris Bender. Sorry, Chris, for outing you, who's one of the producers. But, that was my thing, to let people know that also, while sex is obviously the goal of most high schoolers, it also complicates things. And Kevin and Vicky are so focused on it, and then what's the first thing they do? They break up. Now, granted, that's a little fast, but that's kind of similar to what people experience. So, I think for me, art is about knowing that it's okay, and that we kind of all go through similar things.
I think what I liked about those movies, and it's probably the sign of everything in that film worked together, is that. Obviously everybody know that, Jim banged a pie in that movie, but it's not the first thing I think about when I think about those movies anymore. I mean, because I've seen them, I think, on repeated viewings and, the whole series. And it really is just about the relationship between the guys, their relationship with, in love, and just sort of managing, just sort of get through life like we all are. And I think that that's what resonates most with those movies.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think that's why that film kind of stands out against some of the other teen sex comedies of the era, is that there was a lot more heart in it. Than it wasn't just, the broad comedy.
Sure.
I mean, they went a little bit more for it with each of the sequels, to where we kind of jumped the shark with American Wedding, but then we brought it back with Reunion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
We definitely jumped the shark in Reunion. When we had Finch acting like Stifler, like I can't even watch it. I can't even watch it.
I do want to talk to you, because I've read some things as the 20th anniversary of American Pie has come up. Some people have been talking about that there are obviously some scenes in there that are problematic now that maybe weren't back then. The part where with Jim's escapade gets sort of broadcast out, without her knowing, on the internet, and some of those things are kind of brought up as that kind of stuff wouldn't play anymore. And what do you think that? Do you think that something like that should? I guess how do you respond to something like that in terms of, if you were to tell somebody not to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Yes, that's a problematic scene, but there's more to this movie than just that. How do you sort of think back on that film? Again, the comedy worked then, or some of the scenes worked then, but maybe some of the themes, I guess, necessarily in today's age, don't work.
I mean, I don't know, man. We made it in '99,
Yeah.
and we were combating certain things that we were allowed to do and weren't allowed to do also.
Yeah.
You know, especially on the sequel, especially
Yeah.
on American Pie 2, there was certain things in the drafts that we would see that the studio would kibosh, so that we towed certain lines.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, I understand what the correlation is, but
Sure.
we're not talking about saying that that's okay.
Right.
Jim obviously made a mistake.
Sure.
He wasn't spying on
Yeah.
her. I mean, yes, he was with his friends.
Right.
But the whole student body seeing it was a mistake for comedy's sake.
Right.
And that's sort of the basis of comedy is that comedy is really only funny if you push the envelope.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
we're not talking about a dramatic film that says, "Hey, everybody, let's broadcast our
Right.
friends
Without
naked
someone
on the
knowing.
net."
Right, yeah.
So I think it all has to be sort of digested in context.
Right. We are talking with Thomas Ian Nicholas. He will be at Wizard World Pittsburgh this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. www.wizardworld.com. So as we're sort of wrapping up here, what are these conventions like for you in terms of interacting with your fans? How long have you been doing them, first of all, and what's that experience been like?
I mean, I guess my first Wizard World was June 2017. The first Comic-Con that I was ever a part of was in 2012, which I think is around the time that Comic-Con's kind of shifted into more of a pop culture phase, kind of delving out of the superhero comic book realm. Anyway, the experience for me is I still get starstruck if I see someone whose work I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And especially if I see them at a restaurant with their friends or family, I feel weird about running over to them and interrupting them while they're out. So Wizard World Comic-Con for me is like an opportunity to say, hey, I'm here for you to interrupt me. I'm at my booth. Come say hi. The thing I love about it is I've learned that I've kind of grown up with the people that have enjoyed my work.
Yeah.
We're all around the same age.
Right.
The film Rookie of the Year, I was 12 and it was meant for 12-year-olds.
Right.
So it's like kind of in a weird way, like catching up with old friends that I haven't gotten the chance to ever meet. And an opportunity for me to say thanks for enjoying what I do. Because honestly, if I didn't have people that cared or watched or enjoyed my work, I wouldn't still be in the business 33 years later.
This is a question I like to ask folks who who do these because the first time I ever asked it was probably almost 8 or 9 years ago. I asked George Takei this question because he came to town for an event, and I asked him, "What's the strangest thing that a fan ever asked him to sign?" And George intimated that it was a body part. So I just want to ask you, I don't know if what's the weirdest? Has anyone ever asked you to sign something odd, or have you signed many arms or bodies or?
There's been some body parts signed over the years for sure. Certain body parts are more prevalent at rock shows than at Comic-Con.
Gotcha.
I would say the strangest thing, and I remember, so on my first album, I had, because I've done 6 albums, and I'm working on the 7th one right now, but I remember Bruce Kulick played lead guitar on my first album. He played with Kiss for 15 years. Now he plays with Grand Funk Railroad. And he would talk about these shows he would do in South America where he'd go down, play lead guitar, and everyone would be dressed up like Kiss, and then he'd sign, body parts, arms, legs, things. And when he came to the city the next time, they'd have his signature tattooed.
Wow.
And that's probably the strangest thing is I've had just a couple of people that have had me sign an arm and told me I'm going to get this as a tattoo. And I've thought, wow, that's serious, man.
Yeah.
That is a serious autograph. And I definitely take my time to make sure that it's a good one.
Yeah. Is that flattering or more creepy when someone says they're going to get you tattooed on their arm forever?
I don't necessarily think that. I mean, it's flattering.
Yeah.
I'm not saying please do that.
Right. Right.
I don't have any tattoos because, the main difference between me and, let's say, Sean William Scott in the hair and makeup trailer on American Reunion is I was in and out in 10 minutes, and Sean had to spend an hour getting all his tattoos covered and airbrushed. So I probably won't get a tattoo. No, it's totally flattering because it's more of the idea behind it, and that's my whole kind of my vibe at Wizard World Comic Con is, I've collected autographs and memorabilia, and when I look at that memorabilia, I remember the time of getting it. And if the person was cool and I had a great experience, then it's like this. It's like that.
Yeah.
What is that? The Facebook time hop. It pops up and you're like, wow, remember that moment, that day 7 years ago when that happened? And that's the kind of vibe that I want to, leave people with.
Absolutely.
You don't want to be that memorabilia on the wall where they go, remember when I met that jerk, Thomas Nicholas? What a douche.
Isn't he the one that fucked the pie in American Pie? Oh no, it's the other guy. Do you ever get confused for
being the pie? Yes. For
being the pie. It was a big career move. That was a gutsy career move for you to be the pie.
Yeah, it was. I did it for pies all across America. Really
fantastic, as we all should. Thomas E. Nicholas, thank you so much for all the time today. I really appreciate you coming down here, and we hope you enjoy Pittsburgh for sure, and enjoy the Comic-Con. Absolutely. You can get tickets to the Wizard World Comic-Con, wizardworld.com. You can use the promo code TINWW to get 20% off. And if you want to win tickets, you can email Olivia at pittsburghcurrent.com, and she'll be picking a winner later today. And so thank you very much. This has been the Pittsburgh Current Podcast, and thank you to our sponsors, Compassionate Certification Centers. Have a great week.
A better alternative, giving Pittsburgh a better alternative, giving Pittsburgh a better alternative.